She came, she WhatsApped me one day and was like, I really think we need to get a hairy biker holding a matcha.
Welcome to Connected Thinking, our series of chats with standout voices from the world of marketing, where we unpack what's trending, what's shifting, and what's coming next. I'm Tom Milne, a senior account manager here at Scene Connects, and today I'm joined by Georgia Rhodes, head of marketing at Black Sheep Coffee. With a career spanning hospitality startups, agency life, and high street brands like Milne, Paris Baguette and Quarter Spirits, Georgia brings a wealth of experience in building brands that connect both in-store and online. Now leading marketing at Black Sheep, she's driven the brand's bold transformation to help push the brand to the forefront of consumer minds. Welcome, Georgia. To kick things off, let's go through a couple of questions. You started at Black Sheep Coffee as a freelancer back in 2023. What's the story from that moment to now?
So I went freelance and Black Sheep was actually one of my first clients, and I kind of got the gig actually by cold emailing the founder who was running the socials at the time himself. So we've come a really long way in a year basically. But yeah, started as a freelancer, had a massive interest in partnerships in my career and kind of looked at them and just saw such potential for the brand. So I started with onboarding partnerships. I brought in the Uni Days partnership that kind of led to a lot of NPD and product development. We brought in the functional health range, and then that kind of led up to Matcha, which was our massive campaign last June, full 360, which kind of, I would say, like put Black Sheep on Gen Z's map and Gen Z's radar. And by that point, I was still operating as a contractor and I'd kind of done all this stuff and done this campaign. And then it was a bit like, this is crazy. You actually just need to join us full time, because I was basically doing a full time role for them anyway. My scope just kept on getting bigger and bigger.
Right, and growing.
Yeah. And then I was just like, I'm basically doing everything. So I'll just come in. So I'll just come in full time. So that's kind of the journey so far.
So Black Sheep has built more and more of that customer base. It's a real community, which obviously you've been at the forefront of. And you could arguably say a cult following. So what's the key to building that kind of loyalty from your marketing efforts, would you say?
Well, I think the app is obviously huge for us and driving that and kind of transforming through the app. So our graphic designer, Aaron, I worked with at Leon and we both left at a similar time, and then we kind of reconnected and he came in and was literally my right-hand man. So we redesigned the app, making it much more user-friendly, and we run loads of promotions through the app throughout the year. We're kind of not afraid to do an offer in that sense if it works for us, and we found that that's really driven people in. And then I think also just from a loyalty perspective, really tapping into Gen Z, the Uni Days partnership has helped us tremendously. It's, made us the choice over certain competitors where they might have chosen a competitor over us, and we're not afraid to say that, but it's kept them coming back and is building that cult following kind of from their journey in their coffee world. Do you know what I mean? At the start of coffee drinking life, I guess.
100%. So exciting when you can kind of build that kind of cult and build that community element as well, I think, for a brand. And actually that longevity that you can build is so nice, because actually, like you say, it brings that always coming back there. It's almost makes them part of that journey, which is amazing.
We almost as well, like it's not that we didn't have a base, because we obviously had a customer following, that's why we're there. But I would say we didn't have, kind of any lean in the Gen Z space. So it's kind of been an all or nothing journey. And I think we've grown with our community, and it's kind of like, we're on your radar and they're very much on ours. And it's kind of this really nice open relationship where we're both growing together.
100%. I think that's also when you look at brands that are doing so well now, that's really where you see that success, is that you're not just a brand to them, you're actually something that's on that journey with them. You're kind of taking that route with them through life. And I think that's such a nice way from a brand's perspective as well.
Yeah.
So getting people talking is one thing. It's what we're all here for. But getting them through the door is another. It's a challenge that we all see. How do you turn the online buzz, whether it's organic or owned, into actual footfall to your loyal fans? Is there any channel tactics that you're trying at the moment that's really surprising you, or something that you're loving doing?
So I guess the app is huge for us, but having a social first strategy, and I know we'll kind of probably come on to that, but I think is everything at the moment, down to the products that we're bringing out. The first thing I'm looking at is how are we going to market it on socials, and then we're kind of building out the campaign from there. And I feel like not everyone always starts with that approach, and that's definitely the approach to lead on, because it's what's driving people into stores is the social world, it's influencers. We've never paid an influencer before. Our entire community is all just super organic, a lot of micro-led people, and I feel like having that kind of on the ground and strategy really works for getting people into stores. Yeah,
that's amazing. I think as well, to that point, is when you have that relationship with your community is everything. And you see it all the time. It's like you have to build the community that you want to speak to, and actually to have that community is everything, but you have to show up for them in the right way. So really nice to see. You're across loads of touch points, digital, in-store, partnerships and social. What's your approach to building a joined up multi-medium strategy that actually delivers results?
Yeah, so a social first strategy. So I think in a lot of businesses, you'll get the product, you'll then go through processes of design, then you'll do press, and then the last thing you look at is social. But actually, if you haven't looked at what that hook is to begin with, then you could be messing up your entire product launch and your entire marketing campaign. So the first thing I look at with a product is, what's the hook? How's it going to land on social? Are people going to connect with it in that way? And then we kind of build it out from there. And unfortunately, if I don't think it's going to sell in that way, I'll be very transparent about that with the team and say, I don't really see it for the audience that we're trying to connect with right now.
I think as well, that's very much where you see that almost Gen Z mindset come through as well. I think one thing that someone that's in Gen Z and that very much we live and breathe it for our brands that we work for as well is actually having that ability to say like off the cuff, like, I'm not quite sure this is right. Or what about if we go with this approach, and actually getting to that thinking from the crux is so important, because actually from a Gen Z mindset, we know what we're looking for. We know what we're wanting to see from a brand, but also what the brand wants to see back from its community. So I think like that mindset of being able to say, let's go into this, let's think about how actually this is going to translate is so important. And I think especially when you look at brands now that are being successful, it's actually that piece of that they're not leaving marketing and social to the end. It's at the beginning of that kind of thinking, just like you are.
I think also we're a very joint up team. Like we recently kind of built a category and product team, which is all the heads of department. So you have everything from supply chain to NPD to data to make sure that we are all making like joint up decisions. Because I think in so many businesses that I've been in before, you all sit separately and then there are dots that are missing, no matter what that might be. The best thing we can have at the moment is us preempting based on previous successes of drinks and going to supply chain saying, you need to overorder on this one because we know it's going to do well so that we don't totally sell out, So just having that kind of joint up strategy across all departments has really served us well in the last year.
So Black Sheep has never played it safe, what we love to see. It's bold, it's rebellious, but how do you keep that USP especially as you're scaling, getting to new stores, you're reaching new audiences, there's new platforms? What would you say is that kind of big thing that's making you not play safe?
I think we played safe, for a while. Like I would say up until like one of our most recent campaigns, it's very hard to remain you whilst not getting caught up in kind of the noise of other brands. And I feel everyone's kind of trying to pigeonhole their content very often to, fit into one box because it's very easy and it's a quick win and it works. And it's when you take risks that you don't always know if they're going to pay off, but when they do, that's kind of the beauty of it. So I think it's kind of just coming back to our core identity, remembering who we are, understanding that we've obviously come a long way in a year and that we have new audience types, but who is that core Black Sheep coffee drinker and who is that person? And I think it's just not really losing sight of that, no matter what journey you're on and what products you're developing. It's coming back to that kind of like core ethos, core range of products and scaling it out from there.
The Matcha 2.0, we've obviously spoken about this slightly before, but obviously it's not just for the girlies, it's a campaign that's flipped the script. You can't deny that. Can you take us behind the scenes on this a little bit and give us a little bit more insight into how the idea came to life and anything around the story?
Yeah, so actually I'll give full credit to my social media manager on this. She's actually one of my best friends, which I think is why we have such a great working relationship and why we've been able to just, have such a strong kind of power on social and everything so far. So it actually came, she WhatsApped me one day and was like, I really think we need to get a hairy biker holding a matcha. And I was like, I don't really get it. So I called her on WhatsApp and I was like, elaborate more. And she was like, well, what's the antithesis of this kind of matcha drinker? It's, it's someone who's masculine and male and like maybe drives a motorbike, and it would be really cool because people just wouldn't expect it if we had this like ultra masculine man like holding a pink matcha. It just doesn't really make sense. And I was like, oh yeah, it's like Matcha 2.0. It's like totally reimagined. Like it's not just for the girls, it's not for the girlies. And so she kind of came up with the idea. I then had the tagline and then we were just like, oh my God, we have to make this happen. And it was, I think sometimes with these campaigns, you can overthink it. And I was like, oh, do I talk to a creative agency? Like, who do I brief in? Like, do I try and get Oatly or one of our other partners on board? And then I was like, actually, again, social first campaign, it was We DM'd a couple of biker guys on Instagram that we thought would really suit it. We invited them down. We worked with Perfect Head, got a leather jacket made, and we literally went like 5 streets down from where you guys are. I don't know, near our Bishopsgate store.
Yeah.
And got the guys on motorbikes and took some pictures. And then that's how we built the campaign. So yeah, it was great.
I think that's one of the big things as well, actually, both whenever you see a campaign that's done so well, especially in modern days, that it's not that we now need to do like this high production shoot. We don't need to get 1,000,001 things like in place. It's actually sometimes the best things are actually when you just can get the idea and run with it so quickly, because then actually it brings the life to it. One of the other questions that I obviously want to jump into as well, and you touched on it just then as well, is how you brought in your best friend to be a social media manager. You obviously kind of came in a similar way of kind of that, just outreaching to someone. That's obviously an amazing story. And I think for anyone looking to get into the marketing industry, just as a general point, it's such a nice way, because I'm very much similar. I never kind of led myself to be like, oh, I'm going to go into that. What would you say for someone kind of looking to get into the industry would, in that kind of angst or idea, what would you kind of say would be your top tip then?
I think connections are everything, and like, don't be afraid to ask. I think it's kind of 2 things. So, you know, I went to uni. I didn't necessarily love uni. I did a ton of work experience across so many different fields. Always knew that I wanted to go into creative, but never really knew like what area I would land in. So I was doing like music licensing and television and then media, and I kind of fell into this world by default. But I would say work experience, and I know that's easier said than done, because a lot of it is just about kind of the connections you have. But, you know, what I would say is, if you're, you know, someone young starting out at uni and you're maybe working in a restaurant or you're working in a coffee shop, like if they're an independent brand, have they got anything going on socials? Can you help them? Can you then use that kind of as your portfolio? Like, just ask. And yeah, again, don't be afraid. With Black Sheep, I sent about 200 cold emails, and, you know, 198 of them didn't land anywhere, but 2 of them were Black Sheep and Paris Baguette, which is 2 like really massive brands. So just ask, because if you don't put it out there, you're never going to get anything.
100%. What I love to hear. So what marketing trends or consumer shifts are on your radar right now?
I think it's just keeping up with the demand. Like, I couldn't really tell you anything from a trend perspective. Obviously, Matcha is still huge. It's not going anywhere yet. That's not to say that it might not. But I think for now, it's just continuing to innovate in those areas. We've got a lot of really exciting product launches coming up this year. And I think that's one of the other things about Black Sheep that's been so great, is that, you know, we're all very new to this, even in the product world and the marketing world. So there's not been a ton of red tape. So it's just been like, oh, that's a cool idea, let's do it. And that's kind of how we've operated, and it's worked so far. So
I think with that as well, it really speaks to that mindset of, you're not just kind of chasing after something that's coming. It's actually just living in that moment of, this is what's really big right now. We're following what our community is looking for, but actually, how can we make them want something even more within it? And that's so important. I think you can really say, actually, we know this is what our winning formula is right now. Why do we need to break the mold and actually say, go and do something else? When actually just doubling down on what's really good for you is often the best way.
Absolutely.
So we'll jump into some quick 5 questions. First up, what's your favourite book or podcast that you'd recommend?
My favourite book is actually one that I read a few years ago, and it's called Invisible Women. And it's kind of about how the world was built by men, essentially, and how there's kind of like a data misgap. And it's really interesting. It's things like, when you go into shopping centres, why are the loos on the 3rd floor and not the ground floor, when it's often, you know, mothers or whatnot who need to change their children. It's very interesting. It just kind of like breaks out how things have been designed in the world, but is a really, really good read.
Second one, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I think it's just to get out of your own head. And it's not necessarily from one person. I've been told it a lot. And I think, you know, when you're in high pressured environments, and, you know, I've scaled kind of my career quite quickly, it's very easy to let imposter syndrome take over. And I think a lot of the time it is just in your head. So it's kind of like, just get out your head, basically.
And when you touch on obviously scaling your career and being able to kind of see that growth and get to the position that you're in now, what would you say has like been the biggest, I'd say, learning from that as well? It's from me as well, that kind of running into a career and then you're like so in it, you kind of sometimes get a bit lost in it, and you can definitely feel that imposter syndrome. I've been guilty of it. But what would you say has been like the one thing that you've always like come back to?
I'm very much like a run before you can walk kind of girl. And I think that's actually got me exactly where I need to be. So I think it's been, you know, take that leap. And it's weird. I feel like I had even more confidence when I was 18 kind of to how I do now. And it's like, I swear it's meant to be the other way around, that you're meant to grow it. But I think obviously as like the jobs get bigger and the targets get like larger, you know, it's very easy to kind of run away from that, but actually fake it till you make it.
Always.
Biggest piece of advice I could give anyone, because you'll be all right.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Georgia, on Connected Thinking.
Thank you.
Join us for our next episode coming soon.